Next at 5, 2 growing wildfires in northern Arizona, both exploding in size overnight. The White Sage fire at over 40,000 acres and the Dragon Bravo fire.
Wow. Tonight, the fury from 2 raging wildfires laying siege to the north rim of the Grand Canyon.
This is the Grand Canyon, and this was its only hotel on the North Rim. Completely gone in just hours. 2 fires, 1 lightning strike, and 90 years of history turned to ash. Was this a natural disaster or a man-made failure? Stay with me, because what we're about to uncover is wild. From secret fire policies to a chlorine gas leak that grounded aircraft, this story has it all. On July 4th, 2025, America's Independence Day, a big disaster quietly began in the forests near the Grand Canyon. A dry thunderstorm rolled over the Kaibab Plateau in northern Arizona, which means there was lightning but barely any rain. This is dangerous because the land was already super dry from weeks of heat, and one of those lightning bolts hit a group of tall ponderosa pine trees just 2 kilometers west of the North Rim entrance road. That single strike was enough to start a fire. Fire crews quickly named it Dragon Bravo. It didn't seem too bad at first, but things took a wild turn. Within just a day and a half, around 36 hours, the fire had already become out of control. The problem wasn't just the heat. Strong winds, blowing at 40 miles per hour, helped the flames travel really fast. The fire didn't just spread on its own. It had a lot of help from something called slash piles. These are piles of branches and tree limbs left over from earlier forest clearing projects. They were completely dried out, acting like firewood. So when the wind picked up, the flames fed on those piles and shot forward like they were chasing something. And guess what was in its direct path? The historic Grand Canyon Lodge, the only hotel on the North Rim. While everyone was trying to fight Dragon Bravo, another fire started just 25 kilometers away. This one, also caused by lightning, sparked deep inside the Kaibab National Forest and was named the White Sage Fire. Unlike Dragon Bravo, which threatened buildings, White Sage tore through forest land at a terrifying pace. Over 40,000 acres burned, and it didn't take long for both fires to become massive emergencies. The 2 fires were spreading so fast that it felt like they were racing to meet each other. That lightning strike was just the beginning, but what it destroyed next, well, that was a piece of American history no one expected to lose. The Grand Canyon Lodge wasn't just any old hotel. It was a historic gem, a place full of memories and the heart of the North Rim. Built way back in 1937, this lodge was designed by a guy named Gilbert Stanley Underwood. He's pretty famous for creating beautiful buildings in national parks. He also designed the lodges in Zion and Bryce Canyon. What made the North Rim Lodge special was its location. It sat 8,000 feet above sea level with huge panoramic windows that gave visitors an epic view of Bright Angel Canyon. Just imagine waking up and seeing the vast Grand Canyon right outside your window. That's what made this place magical for so many people. The lodge wasn't just about good views. It was a big deal for the local economy too. It had 219 rooms, which were almost always booked during tourist season. The place also had a cozy dining hall that served warm meals to tired hikers, a gift shop filled with postcards and canyon-themed souvenirs, and even a post office where people sent "Wish You Were Here" letters to family and friends. Altogether, this one lodge brought in about $38 million every year from tourists who came to stay, eat, and explore. That money helped support nearby towns and gave jobs to hundreds of seasonal workers. But maybe the most important part? The memories. The Grand Canyon Lodge had been part of people's lives for almost 90 years. It was featured in road trip movies, old school postcards from the 60s, and tons of travel vlogs in recent years. Couples got engaged there. Families held reunions. Some even came back every year like it was a tradition. Even Barack Obama and his family visited the lodge in 2009 and took pictures there during their vacation. So when the fire destroyed it, it didn't feel like just a building was lost. It felt like part of the canyon itself had vanished. But wait until you see how the fire outsmarted every defense meant to stop it. First, let's talk about the dryness. May and June 2025 were the driest those forests had ever seen on record. Usually the trees and plants have around 9% moisture, but this time it dropped down to just 4%. That's like the difference between damp wood and completely dry matchsticks. The pine needles on the ground were so dry that they could catch fire with just a small spark. So when that lightning bolt hit, it was basically like setting a flame to a pile of tinder. But dryness wasn't the only problem. There are also these things called ladder fuels all over the forest. These are dead branches, fallen limbs, and even whole trees that had been killed by beetles or disease. And they weren't just lying on the ground. They were stacked vertically all the way up to the trees, sometimes more than 8 meters high. That's why it's called a ladder. Once the fire started at the bottom, it climbed its way right up into the tree canopies. And that's when things get dangerous, because once the flames are in the treetops, they can spread way faster and way farther. Now here's where the wind made things even worse. There were strong southwest winds that blew straight through the Bright Angel Canyon, which acted like a natural tunnel. This tunnel of wind pushed the flames directly toward the Grand Canyon Lodge. So even though the fire didn't start right next to the lodge, the wind practically carried it there like a straight highway. That's why the fire reached the area so quickly and caught everyone off guard. Okay, now imagine trying to stop a fire that climbs trees like a ladder and rides the wind like a rocket, because that's exactly what happened. According to the official incident report, this fire was being monitored on purpose. The area where it started was under a wildfire policy called Maintain and Monitor. Basically, if a fire starts naturally, like from lightning, and it doesn't immediately threaten people or buildings, fire crews are told to let it burn. This is called a prescribed fire, or RX fire. The idea is that small fires like these help clear out dead wood and brush so that bigger fires don't happen later. On paper, this sounds smart. It's nature doing its own cleanup. But here's where things get tricky. Nature didn't follow the script this time. What was supposed to be a small, controlled burn turned into a massive disaster. And that's why people are now calling this situation managed lightning, meaning it was a natural fire that officials decided not to stop right away. Critics are saying that the Park Service waited too long, hoping the fire would do some good for the ecosystem. But it ended up destroying everything instead. Even Arizona's governor, Katie Hobbs, is now asking for a full investigation to figure out if this fire could have been stopped before it got out of control. But what if I told you this fire wasn't just bad luck? It was part of the plan. Yes, and that's where it gets seriously controversial. In the past, these higher elevation forests had short, cool fire seasons. Fires didn't start easily because the air was cooler. The snow melted slowly and there was more moisture in the ground, but that's all changing fast because of climate change. Today, fire season in these areas starts much earlier and lasts much longer than it used to. According to experts, it now begins around 27 days earlier than before and goes well into October. That's nearly a whole extra month of fire risk. And this isn't just bad luck. It's happening because of the warming planet. As temperatures rise, snow melts sooner and the ground dries out faster. So forests that were once too wet to burn are now full of dry leaves, dead branches, and flammable material just sitting there, waiting for a spark. One of the biggest problems in 2025 was the snowpack, or more like the lack of it. The Kaibab Plateau usually has a thick layer of snow in the winter, which slowly melts and keeps the soil moist in spring and summer. But this year, the snowpack was 38% lower than the average of the last 20 years. That meant the soil was dry way too early, and the plants didn't get the water they needed. This made everything from pine needles to shrubs dry and ready to catch fire. It was like nature had prepped the forest for a giant bonfire. Another reason fires are now worse at high elevations is because nights aren't cool anymore. In the past, firefighters could rely on the temperature dropping at night to help slow the flames. Cooler air meant the fire would die down and crews could catch up. But now, because of warmer nights, that's not happening. The fuel, like leaves, trees, and grass, doesn't cool off or collect moisture like it used to. So the fire just keeps burning nonstop, 24 hours a day. This makes it incredibly hard for night shift crews who usually get a break from the intensity. Now, there's no safe time to fight the fire. It just keeps going. Just when things couldn't get worse during the Dragon Bravo fire, something totally unexpected happened. A toxic chlorine gas leak. This wasn't just a regular wildfire anymore. It turned into a chemical emergency too. As the fire moved closer to the North Rim water treatment plant, the intense heat caused one of the 500-pound chlorine gas cylinders stored there to rupture. Now, these cylinders are normally used to disinfect the water that tourists and staff use in the park, but when exposed to fire, they can become extremely dangerous. Chlorine gas is not something you want floating around. It's heavier than air, which means instead of rising like smoke, it sinks and settles in low areas like trenches, ditches, and even hiking paths. And that's exactly what happened here. As the gas leaked out, it began to pool in the surrounding land, creating a toxic zone. Firefighters immediately had to pull back, and for 6 full hours, even air tankers had to stop dropping water and fire retardant because it was just too risky to fly near the chemical cloud. Hazmat teams had to be called in urgently. Their job was to clean up the chlorine gas before it harmed anyone or made the fire even harder to control. They used something called soda ash, which is a kind of chemical powder that neutralizes chlorine gas. Once it was safe again, fire crews could return to the area, but that 6-hour delay gave the fire more time to spread. While the fires raged across the North Rim and Kaibab National Forest, hundreds of brave firefighters were working day and night on 2 massive battlefronts, Dragon Bravo and White Sage. On the Dragon Bravo side, about 614 firefighters were deployed. These included hotshot crews, who are basically the special forces of wildland firefighting. You'd see them digging fire lines with hand tools, creating barriers in the forest to stop the flames from spreading. Then there were 8 fixed-wing aircraft flying above, dropping huge loads of fire retardant, and 5 helicopters scooping water from Lake Powell to drop directly on hotspots. Every move they made was part of a big strategy to box the fire in and protect what was left of the North Rim. Meanwhile, the White Sage fire was even bigger and spreading faster, so it had more boots on the ground. 812 firefighters in total. To handle this monster blaze, they used 10 fixed-wing aircraft and 6 helicopters, all rotating between drops, refueling, and back into action again. Pilots and ground crews were working non-stop in high heat, low visibility, and strong winds. These aircraft weren't just flying around randomly. They were targeting areas that were about to hit roads, homes, or important forest zones. Now, let's talk results. By day 8, the Dragon Bravo fire was about 22% contained. That might sound low, but in wildfire terms, it actually means they were slowly gaining control. With fires this intense and unpredictable, even a few percentage points of containment can take days of hard work. Over the White Sage fire, things were going a little better. By day 7, firefighters had managed to contain about 35% of it. But both fires were still dangerous and far from over. After the Dragon Bravo fire destroyed the historic lodge and other important buildings, officials announced that the entire North Rim would be closed for the rest of the 2025 tourist season. And that was a huge blow, because the North Rim usually gets around 450,000 visitors every year. With no place to stay and no access, those visitors either canceled their trips or were forced to switch plans to the South Rim, which was already crowded. This hit nearby gateway towns like Jacob Lake, Kanab, and Page the hardest. These towns survive on tourism. They run small hotels, gift shops, gas stations, restaurants, and tour services, basically everything that travelers need on their way to the canyon. Losing nearly 500,000 visitors meant losing around $96 million in revenue. That's not just numbers. It means real families struggling to pay rent, businesses shutting down early, and employees losing their jobs before the season even ended. Seasonal workers were affected the most. The company that runs the North Rim Lodge, Aramark, had around 210 employees working there this summer. These workers came from all over the country, many of them staying in staff housing during the busy months. After the fire, Aramark tried to offer some of them transfers to the South Rim operations, but there was a big problem: not enough housing. So even though some workers were willing to keep working, they simply had nowhere to live. And this left many of them unemployed in the middle of peak tourist season with no backup plan and no paycheck. Local tour guides were also hit hard. Many Navajo and Havasupai guides had already accepted bookings from visitors planning North Rim hikes, jeep tours, or cultural experiences. These guides depend on the summer season for most of their yearly income. When the fires shut everything down, they not only lost the tours, they also had to refund booking deposits or deal with angry customers canceling at the last minute. Hey, if this video blew your mind or taught you something new, make sure you hit that like button and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Should they rebuild the lodge or not? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that go way deeper than the headlines.